The outgoing EU Council President Donald Tusk has taken on a new job just days before his term in Brussels comes to an end. Trent Murray of Euronews now reports on how one of Europe's most prominent politicians shows no signs of wanting to leave the limelight.
Donald Tusk is elected as president of the European People's Party with 93%. Congratulations, Mr. President.
He may be stepping down as European Council President, but Donald Tusk is stepping up for a new challenge, being elected last night to lead the European People's Party. It's the largest political grouping across the continent, but the centre-right bloc suffered considerable losses in May's EU elections. Tusk's task now is to try and turn around the group's fortunes.
Thank you for all your votes, for your trust. Thanks to your votes, I will be again a president. It's much better, to be the new president of the European People's Party than the former president of the European Council, of course.
He cut his teeth in Polish politics and is committed to the European cause, many hoping this passion will help revive the party's brand.
The party need to change, we need to grow, we need to adapt. That doesn't mean we jeopardise the core values of which we all agree to. He may have a different style, he may have a different approach, but I think he comes at this role with great experience as President of the Council, having been key in the negotiations around Brexit, but also his own personal experience, his own political background as well.
I think we'll see a big focus on the rule of law, respect for democracy, respect for human rights. I think that's something that's very important, and we're going to take the populists head on over the next 5 years with him as president.
The growth in the vote for populists has left EPP numbers down in the European Parliament, which means the group will have to work across political divides to have influence. Luckily for the EPP, Tusk's time in Brussels' top job means he's well versed in trying to find agreement across political divides. Trent Murray, Euronews.
Well, live now to our correspondent Shona Murray, who's in Zagreb, the Croatian capital. That's where the European People's Party have been holding their Congress. Shona, Donald Tusk, a huge figure in European politics and in Polish politics, of course, in the post-communist era, and a staunch anti-populist. What do you think we can expect from him in his new role?
Yeah, indeed that. I think, this confrontation with the populists will be something he'll be bringing to the table when he takes up his role as President of the European People's Party and possibly his influence on wider EU politics. I mean, if you look at his speech last night, it was very much with this theme in mind. He talked about not sacrificing EU values to manipulators, liars, populists who would have us believe that liberalism and freedom was incompatible with security. Months ago, before he ended his term in the European Council, he advised that Donald Trump, the US president, stopped flirting with populists and authoritarians, and he engaged in a war of words with Vladimir Putin just a couple of months ago on this same issue. And as you mentioned there, Alistair, he is a person who comes with this with a fair degree of credibility and experience. He was incarcerated in the Soviet Union for his anti-communist viewpoint. He talked about that time. He said the Soviet Union was a place of lies, of gulags, of walls, of imprisonment and violence, and in contrast the EU is a place of peace, and he said that we need to strengthen that place. So I think that really much will be the theme that we can expect from Donald Tusk as he takes up his role.
And what about within their own group, the EPP? Because we've got Fidesz, Viktor Orban's party in Hungary, who are suspended from the group at the moment. What do you think is likely to happen there?
Well, that's the first and biggest test for Donald Tusk, isn't it? Because, his theme is to end this sort of misinformation, disinformation and anti-migrant propaganda. So he has an opportunity now to, I suppose, put his money where his mouth is, because Fidesz, as you mentioned there, is a member of the European People's Party officially, but is suspended because of the behaviour of Prime Minister Viktor Orban and the sort of propaganda he spread in Hungary and various other issues regarding the rule of law. If you were to listen to what Donald Tusk said last night in relation to Viktor Orban, he said, for example, that this anti-migrant propaganda must stop and truth and decency need to come to the fore. Then if you're Viktor Orban, you would be thinking that he's not minded to allow Fidesz back into the fold in the European People's Party. But that decision will be made next year by the political grouping, pending an assessment by 3 senior members of the European People's Party to see whether or not Viktor Orban has sort of learned his lesson and will change his ways and is going to be a valued member or not of the European People's Party. I did ask the Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar about this himself, his party Fine Gael being a member of that party.
I think the fact that we have suspended Fidesz from EPP is a demonstration that we're not going to have parties in the EPP that don't adhere to European values. And his long-term position, or the position of Fidesz, is of course under review, but certainly Fidesz has not apologised or withdrawn any of their actions, and I think it's a very different scenario in that case.